You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
Hey there, pet parents. This is Kristi Vaughn, host of the Doggy Dish, and today we are putting your pups to work. Today's show is all about training and yummy treats to use while they work for you. We'll be right back with a special guest after these messages from our sponsors.
We'll be right back right after these messages. Stay tuned.
Pet Life Radio, the #1 pet radio network on the planet, joins forces with iHeartRadio to put the power of your pets in your pocket. Awesome! Download the iHeartRadio app and rock Pet Life Radio on your phone, on your tablet, on your Xbox, in your car. Pet talk, pet tunes, and fun pet times. Pet Life Radio and iHeartRadio. Positively Possum.
Let's talk pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Doggy Dish on Pet Life Radio. Today's show is all about putting your pups to work for their treats. Yes, we are talking about training today. I have a very special guest here with me. Robin Carter from RC Training is a dog training guru and a certified vet tech. She's been in the dog world for a very long time, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Welcome, Robin. Thank you so much for being here. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in dog training?
Yes, thanks for having me. I guess it started, when we grew up, we bred English Bulldogs, and I was a junior handler. I had to do the whole show thing with Bulldogs and getting them cleaned up and ready. And then, as I got older, I started progressing through school and, I was going to do something with animals. And I become a registered veterinary technician. I've been doing it, over 24 years. I've worked anywhere from exotics to small animal veterinary practices. I've been training dogs for well over 12 years. I've always liked the behavior side of the medicine. I like trying to make sure that, there's a great relationship between, like a pet and owner type relationship is better.
Cool. Well, you've definitely been at it for a long time. So I have lots of questions for you today that I'm sure our listeners also would want to know. So the first one is kind of an obvious question that I'm sure everyone asks you. So just stay with me here. Can all dogs be trained?
I think so. I think the trick is to find out, what's best for your pet. There's always different methods for the same result. Everybody uses something different. Some people use praise, toys. A lot of them are food motivated. It all just depends on what works best.
Okay, so just like people, I guess every dog is a little bit different in what motivates them. So can all dogs be motivated with food while training? Is that possible to use food with every single dog you're training?
Most can. I would not say all. The trick is to find something special that they like. When you're training with treats or with a toy, it has to be a special toy or treat that's only given during training time. It shouldn't be something that they get all the time because that becomes boring. It's not special at that point. And you want training to be special so that it's an easy thing. It's not supposed to be a chore.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. So it needs to be something super yummy if it's a treat, something that they're not used to getting on a daily basis, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Well, can you go through some ways to use food while training? So let's say we have a really food-motivated dog that we want to start training with, maybe a puppy. What are some ways that you can use food while training them?
Well, what you want to do is you want to work on focus. That's an easy one to work with food. People teach sit with food. They teach down with food. There's all different little tricks and things of the trait that you can use. You could teach retrieves with food. There's no limit, really, to what you can use food to learn.
So pretty much anything you want to train them on, you could potentially use food with that. It just needs to be something yummy.
As long as they're motivated that way, yeah, definitely.
Now, what are some of the benefits of rewarding them with treats over some other type of reward? What are some of the benefits with using food or treats specifically?
Food treats can be an instant reward. It's a quicker reward. It's faster setup for repeated exercise. You're not throwing a ball out and having them retrieve it and bring it back. It's a very quick, instant, and you can set up for a repeat of the same exercise over and over.
So it's like that instant gratification that I know all dogs love. Humans do too, so that Makes complete sense.
Exactly.
Now, I have heard some people say that they don't want to bribe their dogs. And now personally, I'm a crazy dog lady, so I don't really see anything wrong with that. But can you explain the difference between bribing and rewarding or training with food? What is there, and is there a difference?
Using food correctly, you're not bribing. You're teaching a skill, and once it's learned, you start backing off on food and using more praise. So you start lengthening the use of treats. You say you've taught your dog to sit. You walk away, you come back, you feed him a treat. Instead of every time he sits, you feed him a treat. You start taking steps back and, reinforcing the sit and then coming back with a treat, or doing it a couple times and then praising in between versus giving them food. You want to back it down. And basically you end up backing it down until you don't need the treat anymore, and it's kind of ingrained and they're happy with just getting praise.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. So you could maybe use food at the beginning and then not necessarily use it the entire time you're training, maybe to just get them excited and motivated to work. That makes sense.
Yeah, you use a lot at first and then you just really back it down.
Okay. Now, another thing that I've heard is that treat-trained dogs can get fat. How can we avoid making our dogs fat when we're training them with the treats?
Well, you're definitely adding calorie to the diet. So what you need to do is you need to adjust your breakfast and dinner meals, or if you feed once a day, just adjusting that meal. Or if you feed twice a day, use one of the meals as a training meal. You can have them sit and feed them from the bowl down. Use your dinner meal as a training exercise. You can also have them wait for food. When you start doing training, you do every little thing you can to keep their attention there and keep them motivated and keep them going, because, idle minds tend to get in trouble.
Okay. That's good. I recently saw a video of this cute little dachshund puppy that was training with a bell. And the owner was giving this little puppy so many treats. So I was just wondering, how are they avoiding making that dog overweight if they're just constantly popping those treats? So I've seen that. I've heard people ask about that. So I think that's a really good point. Just to make sure they're not getting too many calories, we want to make sure we're not making our dogs fat. Now, our last episode we did was all about dog-friendly tailgating. It's football season, lots of people out there enjoying the beautiful fall weather wherever they're at. So how would you go about introducing your shy dog to your friends and their dogs if you want to bring Fido along? Because we did talk about that's really an important part of the planning process of bringing your dogs along to a tailgating party is, make sure they have the right personality. So we talked a little bit about that in the last episode. So I just want to get your take on it. From a training standpoint, what would you do if you have a shy dog and you really, really want to bring them along to have some fun outside, but they're going to be meeting some new people and dogs? What's the best way to do that?
Well, here's the thing. It's not going to work with all dogs. You've got dogs from different backgrounds, dogs that you've rescued that were older, so we don't know everyone's background as far as where they came from. Main thing, definitely when you buy puppies, socialize. I've done Schutzen for many years, and my dog is trustworthy even around little infants. But I made sure that he was totally socialized with all of society. When you have a shy dog, they don't all fit in the same box. Some things that you could try, if you have a large group of people and your dog's really shy, you don't want to pay attention to your dog. You want them to kind of get some self-confidence on their own. And you don't want to condone the shy, like saying, it's okay, because what happens is you're telling them that behavior is okay when it's not. You're trying to change it. So you want to kind of ignore that behavior. You don't want to condone it. You don't want to praise it. You just want to kind of block it out. Another thing I tell people to do is, if they're very food motivated, is to give everybody in the room a treat. And so as your dog gets a little bit more acclimated, knowing that, you're not going to tell him and condone it and, comfort, it's got to seek comfort somewhere else. So then he'll start kind of loosening up. And what I tell people is, tell your friends not to look them in the eye, not to lean over. That's considered a dominance position, lean back or kneel down, kind of go eye level without looking eye level. And let them take food from the hands of all your friends versus trying to lean over and go at your dog and make other people pet them. It makes them more nervous. So you want everyone to be kind of a passive person in the room and let the dog kind of explore on their own.
Oh, wow. So essentially what you're saying is we need to train our people, our humans, just as much as our dogs. Is that right?
Pretty much. I mean, a lot of people don't understand when you lean over a dog, it's kind of a dominant stance. And if you've got a scared dog, that scares them more. You know, when you train with a nervous dog like that, you tend to lean back when you praise, kind of inviting them and opening up your body, because your body language reads a lot. They're more instinctive on your body language than anything else. And the same with your tone of voice. You know, you don't want to go, good dog. You want to raise your voice. You want to pep them up and bring them up instead of, you know, making it more where you're pushing them down.
I like that. I like that idea a lot. And it's great for little outdoor events where you're bringing food and you're bringing dog-safe food like we talked about during our last episode. So what you could do is just give everyone who's at the tailgate a little something, a little treat to hand out to your dog if they're food motivated, and also kind of coach them through meeting your dog. Now, what about dogs meeting other dogs? What if they're a little bit shy and you have a dog at this event who maybe is a little bit friendlier and wants to come up and sniff and everything? What's the best way to introduce them?
This has always been a little pet peeve of mine. Sometimes people are a little free with their dogs. I think when meeting new dogs, everyone should be leashed. I think that they should go nose to nose, because you don't want one to get more dominant than the other, because if you've got two semi-dominant dogs, and one tries to dominate the other, that could be an issue. So you want control for your first meet. And I always tell people, let them meet nose to nose, but just barely nose to nose. You don't want too much slack in there, so if there is a conflict, that you can still have control without anybody getting hurt. I always tell people, you don't want your dog to be dominated by another dog. You know, you want everybody to be kind of on the same level, so that if you do have a nervous dog, he's not being overpowered. Once again, that leaning over, that reaching over them, you know, you don't want them overpowered by another dog, because then that also causes conflict and nerves later when they meet other dogs, or even in the household, if you have multiple dogs, it causes some conflicts because they feel unsure, so then they have to assert themselves again back into the family. So I always tell people, you know, you don't want your dog dominated, and you don't want your dog dominating someone else's. You kind of want everybody on the same playing field, especially out in public.
That's great advice. Excellent. All right, Robin, well, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break, and we will return with more awesome training tips from Robin after these messages from our sponsors.
Sit, stay. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
Hi, this is Tim Link, animal communicator and pet expert and host of Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have you ever wanted to know what your pet is really thinking? Do you want to find out if they truly understand what you're trying to tell them? Ever wish you could build a better understanding and closer relationship with your pet? Well, now you can. Learning to communicate with animals is a 4-part on-demand workshop. In the workshop, you'll learn the essential techniques that are necessary to communicate with animals, including what is animal communication, breathing correctly to achieve the perfect state to communicate with your animals at a deeper level, using guided meditation exercises and method to communicate with animals, and how to send and receive information from your animals. So if you're wanting to learn how to communicate and connect with your animals at a deeper level, visit PetLifeRadio.com/workshop and purchase and download Learning to Communicate with Animals. You'll be glad you did.
Hi, this is Teody Anderson, and I'm the host of Get Positive Results on Pet Life Radio. We're going to talk about a variety of topics on canine behavior and training, all based on modern methods that are fun for you and your dog. We might be talking about other critters too, so join us on Get Positive Results. We'll talk about common issues between you and your dog, answer your questions, discuss different activities you can do with your dog, and keep you posted on current canine news and products. All this on Get Positive Results on Pet Life Radio.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Doggy Dish on Pet Life Radio. Before the break, I was asking Robin Carter from RC Training some basic training questions I know we all wonder about. I learned that only dogs motivated by food can be successfully trained with food. Well, that makes sense, right? So, Robin, let's say you do have a dog who is very motivated by food, like my 2 Rugrats. I'd love to share some tips and tricks for making your own training treats. So, in your opinion, what are the best types of food to use with training?
You want something small and quick. You don't want them to chew and drop crumbs where they have to go search for crumbs and things like that. It needs to be very small and a very quick almost a swallow type bite. You don't want to lose the focus or the time with them, trying to chew up a whole treat, everything of that nature. When we do schutzen or when we do any other training, when I did regular obedience training, we always used chicken hot dogs, and we used an egg slicer because that ends up cutting them right at the correct size for just a quick bite. I've seen people use cheese sticks the same way. Of course, like the egg slicers are not made for those. You have to cut them in half and then slice them. The good thing about doing chicken hot dogs or things like that is that you can do a whole bunch of them and freeze them in individual packs. So you have individual training packs when you pull them out of the freezer or that type of thing. But the ultimate thing is you want a quick reward so they can get immediate response. If they do something correct, it's a very quick, yes, there you go. And then you want them to focus again, to do it again, so you give them another treat. So it's a very quick going process.
Okay. And chicken hot dogs sound really yummy to me, so I'm sure dogs motivated by food would love it. So that's a good choice. Now, what foods do you want to stay away from when training?
Typically, it's like large dog treats, foods that they get all the time. When using reward treats, you just want to use something that they are excited about earning. It can be simple as, doing a wait and sit and giving them this hot dog. If you were to use something that they got all the time, say you give milk bones, and you give a milk bone, you're doing this sit, and they're chewing on it, and the pieces all fall out, and now they're leaning down and bringing their behind off the floor, and they're cleaning up their mess, and so you've kind of all broken the training session at this point. Mm-hmm. So now they're no longer focused on what they're doing. They're more worried about, picking up the mess and continuing to eat.
Licking the floor.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about what mine do all the time. So what about using those treat stuffed toys for training? Making them really work to get at it. Does that do anything from a training standpoint?
They have their place. When you have a high energy dog, it gets them thinking, it keeps them from being bored and chewing up something in your house. The thing is it should not always be laying around. Anything that you train with should not be laying around the house. You want it to be a special toy that when they're training with it, they're playing with it, they're really enjoying it, and almost like right at the peak of them getting really, really into the toy is when you should cut your training session short and take the toy away and, take them outside to use the bathroom or change the direction of things, because you want them to be just that excited when you pull it out again, because they're like, oh, that's that toy that I was playing with that they took away that I really want to play with again. So it has to be something that constantly motivates them. It shouldn't be something just laying around the house, because that's boring. They've been playing with that all day. So what if you put treats in it? I'll just roll it around till the treats are gone and then go lay down again. See, it has to be something that they constantly just are excited to see every time you pull it out.
I like that idea. All right, so I'm going to go through some ideas for homemade training treats, and you tell me whether or not they are effective for training. Okay? All right, so using your dog's regular food or the pieces of kibble, is that a do or a don't?
Definitely. If you're going to do it, use the dinner as your training treat, but that should be the dinner that you're giving is your training treats. It shouldn't be training treats on top of dinner. It gives you a great opportunity. You've got some time because you're feeding the dog and you're hanging out and, y'all probably been doing things. It's a great opportunity to use the dinner as a training treat. As far as kibble all the time, they get bored with it. I mean, it is dinner. They get it every night.
That's true.
Once again, I'd still try to look at something else, on a more varying basis as well.
But the kibble could be a good solution to overfeeding or overtreating, because like you said, if you're training with their dinner, then technically you're not really overfeeding them. So it could be a good way to train a dog that you're concerned about their weight, possibly. Is that right?
Correct. But
okay.
Like I said, if you're going to use other treats as well, just cut dinner. You'll kind of get an idea of how many treats you've fed them during the day in relation to how much food they normally get in their bowl. So between the two things, you should be able to figure out a good medium, area as far as things go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good. Now, on this show, we always talk about healthy, real food that we can make into dog treats. So I've heard that healthy people food can make for excellent training treats. Dogs love it. It's convenient and healthy. So what about something like meat baby food out of a jar or some type of dispenser? Would that be a do or a don't for training?
I wouldn't use it. It's not going to be a quick enough reward. It's messy. I would not use it myself.
What about chopped fresh meat? Maybe like deli meat or some fresh chicken or steak, something like that, cut up really small. Is that a good idea or no?
I've heard of people taking steak and doing small pieces. Once again, Think back to the egg slicer size when you do it, though. It needs to be a quick bite. They don't need a big chunk that they're trying to chew on. Once again, you want a fast response. You want to feed and then them looking at you like, okay, what's next? That's what you want.
Okay. What about chopped fresh cheese? I know dogs love cheese.
Yeah, you can use it. Like I said, we've used the stick cheese the same way we did the hot dog. But you don't want to do so much of it because it could cause stomach upset. There's a lot of dairy in it. Dogs aren't notorious for dairy products typically. They're more of your meat and veggie type wild animal feel to them. So, they can still get the stomach upset. And that does bring up a good point also is whenever you buy a treat, try it before you try to train with it. Because if they don't like it and you've got this big old bag of things and you're trying to push it on them to do tricks for, it's not going to work. So definitely try things out first too.
Sure. What about chopped veggies like carrots? We talk a lot about fresh veggies on the show as treats, but what about using it for training?
Once again, I think there's too much chew with it. It needs to be, a pretty quick thing and something that they're going to be over the top for. You want them to be so excited for it. So like a smelly hot dog is awesome. Their factories are going crazy thinking, oh, I'm getting a treat. Where, veggies are like, oh, I'll eat this. Yeah, that's great. It's not awesome.
True.
It's not as good as meat.
That's very true. Okay, excellent. So your recommendation would be the hot dogs or possibly small pieces of cheese cut up, just something that's quick. They're not going to have to chew on too much. It's not going to make crumbs or a big mess all over the floor. So that's awesome advice. All right, so you mentioned a couple of times Schutzhund, and I know what it is because you've told me, but can you just give a brief description of it for our listeners, just in case they're not familiar with it, because it's a really cool way of training. So can you just kind of explain a little bit about it, because I know you've been involved with it for a while.
Yeah, it's a very misunderstood dog sport. It's a German-made dog sport. Originally, it was used to test police dogs, and Schutzhund translates loosely working dog. It is an example of what temperament and training does. It's 3 phases. It's tracking, obedience, and there is protection phase. A lot of the dogs, with the protection phase are very prey-driven dogs. They're not crazy bite dogs. They're not fighting dogs. They bite a sleeve. But the thing is when we're testing Schutzhund dogs, they have to have a good temperament. Dogs are not allowed to enter the field ill-tempered. They're not allowed to compete if they're not a good, even temperament. They are dismissed. It's a very misunderstood sport. People get the wrong impression when you say bite work. My dog, he's been raised with 3 kids. You would think he was a border collie in a shepherd's little body. He's nutty, but you'd never know that he does bite work. And I don't typically introduce him and tell people he has bite work until after they've met him and they think he's awesome. And then I tell them, they're like, really? They're shocked. They're beside themselves. But it's also, because it's more of a German style, when you say sit to a Schutzhund dog, it's sit. We don't say sit, stay. We don't repeat commands. It's a one-word command. And you do it really, there's a lot of neat motivational stuff coming out of other countries that are working beautifully. One of the trainers that I worked with had, 8 and 10-week-old puppies healing, not even looking where they're going, staring up at him the whole way up the field. They just adored him. And it was all through motivational, and that was a lot of food work as well. There's different focus things you can do with hot dogs, even at a very young age. And these puppies were already doing some just absolutely beautiful healing, never using a command. Because once again, in Schutzhund, we don't give the command until they understand what we want from them. So it's a little different. I've helped some people and train them in obedience doing it, and their dogs have done wonderful, even in the AKC ring with things. So it's a little bit different method to things, but I think it works.
Wow. Well, thanks for explaining that, because it is something that seems to be really effective, but a lot of people don't know about it. All right, so I think we know what works best for training as far as foods go. Robin, thank you so much for sharing all of this wonderful advice with us. And I know you have a really awesome product out there called a knuckleball, and I've seen them and my dogs have played with them. Can you tell us a little bit about it and where our listeners can order them?
Once again, when in training, we use a lot of ball motivation as well. I'm sure people have seen when you see police dogs, military dogs, when they're detecting and then they throw off the toy to the other side. Normally it's like a ball on a string or a Kong. And the point of the knuckleball is it's the same thing as a ball on the string, except for it's made out of one piece of rope. So there's no ball to fall off. It's a pretty sturdy toy. You can use it to train. You can use it to retrieve with. You can play tug with it. It's pretty versatile. Not all dogs. I have a couple of people that have bought them for their cats I got little bitty sizes that the cats play with. It's crazy. I think there's some up on my Facebook page currently. But it's neat because with puppies, you can use it to get them moving and bouncing around and chasing, because the string's long enough to drag across the floor with. And then when they catch it, you let them catch it, and then they run off. You take it from them and wiggle it on the floor again and play it all over again. You always have to give them the reward of catching it, not totally torment them. And then,
of course.
And so we've used them a long time, so we've made these knuckleballs so that they can have them and play with them. And once again, I always tell people, with any dog toy or anything of that nature, you don't want to leave it laying around if you've got a heavy chewer. Dogs are notorious for swallowing pieces and foreign bodies. And being a registered veterinary technician, I have seen my fair share of surgeries for foreign bodies. We don't want that.
Oof, no.
So I always tell people to be careful, especially with rope toys or cloth toys. Some of the strangest things we've pulled out of dogs' bellies you would not believe.
I can imagine.
It's amazing that they can swallow some of the things that they swallow. But, I always tell people to put things like this away. I always tell people to bring a toy out, let them play with it, and then put it away. You don't want to leave things around too much, because they become bored with them, then they don't play with them, and they're just around your house, and you're tripping over them, like everybody else does. But,
make them put their toys up in their toy box like kids, right?
Exactly.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I had a shepherd that did that, actually. You could say clean up. And he'd go and he'd pick up his toy, and you'd say clean up. And he'd pick up the next toy and put it back in the box. So,
well, you're going to have to come over and train my dogs to do that, because they are like little kids with their toys. They leave them all over the place, and then I trip on them.
Oh, yeah. You could also tell him which toy to take out. He'd take it out of the box.
Oh,
so,
wow.
But currently, you can find them at positivelyWholesome.com. And I also have a Facebook page under RC Training. And I think I'm on Twitter as well. So I think you can find all those.
Awesome. We're going to definitely put those links up on the show's page so everyone can find you and find your knuckleballs and go ahead and order them. And even for our cat listeners, did you hear that? The cats like the ones that are teeny tiny too. So not only for dogs.
Yeah, I have a friend that's a cat behaviorist that's looking at them too, and for some of her patients. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, very cool. Neat. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Robin. This is so exciting, everything that you're doing. And we'll put all of her information up on our show page. So if you want to buy a knuckleball, or if you want to check out her training site, you can. She is based in Atlanta, Georgia. So if we have any people in the area who are interested in training, you can contact her through the show page. So we are out of time, and we thank our special guest, Robin, for joining us today and sharing some awesome training advice with us. And we'd also like to thank our producers for making this show possible. I always love to hear from my listeners. So please send your comments and questions to Kristi at PetLifeRadio.com. That's Kristi with an I. You can also find the Doggy Dish on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be sure to like us and follow us to keep up with the latest and greatest in healthy cooking for your furry kids. I post all of the recipes mentioned on there, so feel free to go there and follow along. Thanks for listening to the Doggy Dish. Bye-bye for now.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.